we're in an environment today where, it's not like it was 20 years ago, where people settle into a house and they're there for 15 or 20 years. The millennials and Gen Zs especially move around a lot. So the ability to look forward as to where they're going, and we actually can provide indications of where they're going before they actually go there, right? An example would be, you always forward your financial information, right? A credit card statement, a bank statement, to the new address before you're there, right? So again, we get indications of where they're going before they're actually there. So it's very much easier for us to trace people, not only through time backwards, but through time going forward.
And that's a great point, John, because I think especially now in the last couple of years, when, with the pandemic, we've seen people that are moving out of the cities and into the country, just by the nature that they can nowadays. And so keeping up on that, I think that's critical to your value proposition is that you're current with that, immediately current with that particular piece of the consumer element.
The other actual interesting piece is, again, there's a large population that are moving back in with mom and dad.
That's true, yeah.
And, when we look at person entities, we also spend a lot of time calculating their role in the household, right? So the 30-year-old who was previously in an apartment in a city now can't afford it, right? So they're back home with mom and dad. They're a child, and if they're asking for a policy as the primary named insured, based on their role in the household, we can give an indication that it's an individual policy, right? Not a household policy. Because believe me, being there, you don't want your kids on your policy as an adult. Yeah. So, and again, so we not only, now we'll return everybody in the household, but we'll give an indication that this is most likely an individual policy and should be quoted as such, rather than put the consumer through that hellacious 20 minutes of pain to describe things that really aren't a part of their policy.
Yeah. Well, I think for next year, one of the things, we get applications that come in from typically the consumer or from the retail agent, and the retail agent's just relaying the information that they got from the consumer. So it's only as good as the application that we've gotten in. If we complement that data with the quality consumer data that you guys offer, right, then we can validate that to make a better, faster underwriting decision, but also fill in the blanks where folks maybe, they got a little creative, let's say, just to try to get that insurance application in. So it's critically important to our program customers because they're focused in on a specific set of business, a specific demographic. And I think two things that Confianza does exceptionally well is one, driving the good leads towards these retail agents to be able to get them the quality information, but then also getting it in the hands of our program administrators after the application has occurred so that they can make real-time binding decisions. Many of our systems, our programs are real-time binding. Literally, the agent is working their way through that application and they're binding at the end of that, sight unseen to the MGA who's running the program. And so data is critical to that because that's going to help the automated underwriting engine be able to make that decision on behalf of the MGA.
I mean, that's the other interesting piece is if there is a discrepancy in what the consumer has provided or the agent's provided and what we see, right, again, you can limit the number of questions to just the discrepancies. You don't have to go through that exhaustive validation process with the consumer.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point about pre-fill of data. If the agent can start with just a couple pieces of information and then they're working from pulling the cleanest data possible from your sources, then they're already ahead of the game. They can get a clean, fast indication of premium and they can bind very, very quickly.
The other interesting thing, since we collect a lot of behavioral data, is we can provide kind of tips and leads to the agent, right? Based on very little information, we can actually paint the consumer's entire insurance footprint, right? So again, the consumer or the agent may be coming in for an auto policy, but we also know that this person's got $1 million home, right? So they're a really good candidate for property. That they've got lots of content to insure, right? An umbrella policy or other assets. that they've got lots of investable assets and consider themselves a beginner. So if there's a wealth management aspect. So now the agent has a complete picture of who the consumer is before the conversation begins. Right? So, again, you serve the need. Let's talk about your auto policy. And by the way, if you're interested in a property or an umbrella policy, and we can bundle those together, I can save you 20%, right? And everybody knows the more features that you have on a policy, the stickier a consumer is.
That and the more cost effective it is in the end run for the package of it all.
Right.